Hi, everyone. I'm Alice, and I'm here to tell you that your open source repo needs a project manager. The reason for that is pretty simple. I've seen what happens to projects that neglect it. So, no matter what the size of your project is, you need to take project management seriously. If you've been around open source, you'll notice that once promising projects can start to sicken. If you have poor onboarding, if your prioritization is unclear, if your decision making is bottlenecked, your project is going to suffer. This looks different depending on your scale. If your project is tiny, you might end up with just one maintainer desperate for a break, while users give up hope on ever getting a fix for that one awful bug. If your project has a small team, you might end up just stalling out, as no one can figure out how to help or to agree on the direction that the project is going to take. And if your project is huge, like my beloved Bevy or Rust itself, you might end up with a massive PR backlog and dozens of competing high-impact projects to tackle all at once. But here's the thing about open source. Contributors want to help you. The trick, of course, is letting them. So you can't do open source project management the same way you might at a corporate team or at a group project at school. Critically, the teams are very different. The first one, your team is on open source is going to be incredibly diverse. The first PR you review in a day might be from a 13-year-old learning to code. The second PR may be from a college student in the Philippines. And the last may be from Ditone himself. So contributors may not be perfectly fluent. They may be new to your project. They may be new to your programming language. You have to be patient with them and prioritize continuous automatic onboarding. Second, your team is distributed all over the world, working strange hours. Your work must be incremental. You must create durable artifacts, and most importantly, your decision-making needs to be asynchronous and transparent. Meetings are exclusionary. Only use them when collaborating on small pieces of work. Finally, and most importantly, you're leading a team of volunteers. Fascination and frustration are the twin driving forces of open source. If an issue is neither aggravating nor interesting, it will be neglected. It will build up in your issue tracker, and you'll have an issue to fix this small but kind of paper-cutty bug from 10 years ago, and even if it's not hard. Volunteers are particularly sensitive to annoyances in your process. They disappear and reappear basically at random, and if you're lucky, you'll get even a day of warning or communication. As a result, the critical lesson is simple. You are not the boss. As a project manager, your job is to listen to and support your team, not to tell them what to do. This is doubly true in open source. Quarterly goals, sprints, Gantt charts, all those acronym-laden CYA methodologies. Throw it out. You're not overseeing projects, you're organizing them. Tiny bugs will reveal fundamental problems, and cool new PRs will arise as if by spontaneous generation. If you want to bring order to the repo, you must embrace its chaos. As a project manager, you have 3 goals. The first one is to make sure that all the brilliant people on your team actually talk to each other. Make them talk about what they're doing. Make them ask stakeholders for input. Make them ask for help when they're stuck. Engineers are remarkably resistant to talking to people, and just be friendly, talk to them, convince them that it's okay and valuable and a good use of their time. Next, you need to make sure that the output of these discussions is written down in a single obvious place. This helps you avoid confusion and wasted time. Finally, your job as a project manager is to make everyone else's life easier by reducing friction throughout the process. So, I like to joke that the trick to successful open source project management is exactly the same as when you're playing Factorio. Automate everything. Your time, your energy, your decision-making juice, it's all precious. The core lesson that I have for you today is that automation is not just code. It's not just CI, it's not just build system, it's not just tests. It's great docs, it's delegation to a trusted team, it's standardized processes that reduce friction and confusion and wasted time. Automation is work that gets done without you. So if you've worked with me, you'll know that documentation is my favorite form of automation. If you're teaching a new user how your API works, that's time you can't get back. If you're answering questions about the internals for a contributor, that's time you can't get back. If you're trying to recount an informal design discussion and digging through chat logs on Zulip or Discord for notes, that's time you can't get back. Stop repeating yourself. Your goal is to empower your team and minimize coordination overhead. It's just like writing parallel code. You need to minimize the amount of time wasted communicating. Write down all of the important information in the right place, and it can be read over and over again. Of course, telling yourself, I'm going to write better docs, is like setting a New Year's resolution goal to get in shape. It's a great sentiment, but it's never going to happen like that. So you need a plan. And for me, the flowchart is dead simple. You start by talking to your users and contributors, listening to their questions, hearing about their concerns, helping them use whatever you're making. Could you answer their question completely with a link to the relevant documentation? Did that link solve their problem? If not, that's a bug. Go file one. So I have a hot take here. My opinion is that one of the best ways to reduce the amount of work you have to do is to get other people to do your job for you. So as a maintainer, you cannot let yourself be the single point of failure. This is what bus factors are all about. Your team wants to help. That's why they're here. You want to have the freedom to take vacations. You want to be robust from terrible disasters. So let your team help you. Start small, leave good first issues open, wait for feedback on your PRs, make sure there's a place for users to help each other. As you start to trust the regulars, align with them on project vision, and then hand out some real power. Give them triage rights, ask for the reviews, make them feel included and welcome and important. And when you're both ready, hand over some right permissions and watch them make incredible things. It's okay, really. Trust your team. So on that note, something that I love about our process at Bevy, this is my shirt, it's open source game engine, it's great, is that we actively solicit community reviews. The process is pretty simple. We make it clear to our community that anyone can review any PR that they have feedback on, and secondly, that their concerns and approvals count for something. This has 3 effects. First, it helps reviewers and authors learn to write better, clearer code, docs, and PR descriptions. Second, it genuinely helps clean up the code and design before you spend your time as a maintainer reviewing. And finally, it makes the contributors feel like they matter, like they have easy, great ways to get started, and it makes them feel like they're part of the team. Because they do matter, and they are part of the team. So if I'm saying that community reviews should matter, what actual effects should they have? So on the Bevy project, I have scoped merge rights. This means that I can merge relatively uncontroversial PRs, as long as they have at least 2 community approvals. So very interesting, but relatively uncontroversial is in fact shockingly easy to determine. If the change is simple, low impact, or has a clear consensus, it should be easy to merge. If your team can't agree on whether or not a PR is controversial, it's controversial. So I love this system because of the incentives it creates. We've been working with this for several months, and it's vastly improved our process and our flow. And the incentives that it creates are, if you want your PR merged quickly, you clearly explain why it's valuable, you follow conventions, and you keep the scope small. It's exactly what you want out of all of your PRs, and you just say, here's the easy path. You could take the easy path, or you could take the hard path, and everybody chooses the easy path whenever they can. So I have a little bit of a segue. How's everybody enjoying RustConf so far? That's great, because the fine print, when I signed up to be a speaker, says that I need at least 1 slide singing Rust virtues, or they'll never invite me back. So to satisfy that checklist, we're going to talk about classical automation, CI, build systems, all of that. So what's my #1 tip to make your code more reliable and your PRs easier to review? It's actually genuinely, I swear to God, write it in Rust. So the borrow checker is great. The type systems are great. The enums are especially great. Oh my God, use enums everywhere in your code whenever you can. Rust has this remarkable, if it compiles, it works property. And in my experience, it actually is true. We can put a tremendous amount of trust in incredibly complex projects from people we've never met before if they have good tests, if their code compiles. Because the language helps you build correct code. So alongside Rust, there are a few tools that I love to use. Shout out to the cargo team in particular. Cargo format, cargo clipping, and cargo test are all fantastic. These are some of the best tools. Set them up on all of your projects and slowly refine and iterate on them. You can clean up your code, you can reduce bike shedding, you can make sure that everything passes in CI, and you won't suddenly accidentally break your whole project, hopefully. So, but when you're setting up CI, you have to be careful about what you're adding. Nitpicky and flaky checks are friction in the process. If a robot is complaining about something that's trivial, it should be trivial to fix. If you have a failure in code that you didn't touch, like this, that's blocking your PR, this sucks so much. I hate it. Dead link checking, if any of you guys have played around with that, is atrocious. That's one of the things where you have to be very careful about how exactly you set it up. So once you have a basic setup, just play around with it. It's a lot easier to mess around with than you might expect. So I'm going to talk, finally, in terms of concrete stuff, I'm going to talk about the bits of project management that software as a service companies try and sell you. So this is the tools that you can use to organize work. The stuff, I mostly use GitHub, but these are the organizational tools. So there are 4 tools that I really love and I think you should be using. So the first one is I think you should be using labels for your issues and for your PRs. They're so useful, they're so versatile, they should be the first thing that you reach for. Think about your needs, define a set that meets them, and just slap them on there, hand out triage rights super, super aggressively. Like everybody who has contributed to your project should have triage rights. You can use them for search tags, you can use them for importance and difficulty management, you can use them for, okay, where is this through the process? They're fantastic, but think about and customize your workflows there. So the next suggestion I have is issue and PR templates. These are fantastic. Spend some time bike shedding it, reduce friction there, but they allow you to get really consistent information from your team without remembering, okay, what do I need to actually include in this? What makes a good issue? What makes a good bug report? What makes a good PR? Just make a template, and then new contributors will be automatically onboarded. The next suggestion is to use milestones. Use milestones, and in particular, use train releases. What we'd like to do is we like to say, okay, here are all of the cool things that we would like, and you just stick them in the milestone. And let the org say, let the contributors as a whole say, here are the things that I think would be cool to land, and then go and shape them and figure out, here's the stuff that fits together, here's what we're going to make, and do not make them promises. You are a team of volunteers. Do not ever, ever, ever make promises about timelines, especially not when you have a fixed scope. You do not want to be working overtime on a team of volunteers, and that includes if you have a project of 1. You are also a volunteer. So Rustlang uses what are called train releases to do this, where they release on a fixed time, and anything that's ready just gets shipped. Do that if you're a large project. My last relatively recent tool that I've started using a lot is project boards. So this is basically a hybrid Kanban spreadsheet that GitHub has, and they're awesome. I love them so much. They are they're very useful to organize information about large initiatives. It's to collect them and to organize this. I like them so much better than tracking issues, because tracking issues are hard because only a single person can edit them, and you accumulate these these threads of 10,000 comments with a collapse click to reveal 1,000 more comments in the middle. Not a great process, but with a project board, you can quickly at a glance get an overview of what's going on, and then all the information again is collected in that single right spot on the issue where the work is being done. So when we're thinking about these tools, I really like to think about user stories. I like to think about who's using this, what are they trying to do, and how can we automate this to improve friction. Don't just say, okay, we're going to go and we're going to add this new process and it's going to be great. Like, actually think through your needs. Think through what can we replace, how can we consolidate, how can we keep this organized, how can we make sure that this actually continues to be used. So this is fun. I hope I've convinced you that your open source repo should have a project manager, or should put some thought into it. Wear that hat sometimes. But a question that I often get is, great, I'm sold. I want a project manager. How do I get one? If you're a team of volunteers, you need to attract project managers by communicating that you need a project manager. This is a critical first step, but is often neglected. Like, talk to your community, put out an announcement saying, hey, we're looking for people who need project management work. And especially communicate that they don't need to be the smartest, most technical, most adept person. They can be new to the project, and they can still do an effective job doing project management work. Second, you need to empower your project managers and make it clear that as the maintainer, as the tech lead, that they have your blessing to do this work. You need to make sure that your team trusts them and communicates through them whenever, when that's helpful. Their job isn't to make decisions, it's to gather the information needed to make decisions. Next, having a solid existing process that you can train them on, that they can hook into, this helps them so much to get started. All that stuff from before, if you're a single maintainer project or just a very small team starting to scale up, get that right first, and then say, okay, I want to train. You've been a great contributor. You seem like you have strong organizational skills. Let me get you started on this, and start organically scaling them into that role. And finally, my suggestion is to start small. Start with a really nice, narrow slice, and allow them to know the work inside out, both on a technical level and in terms of what's going on. And again, project boards to track this work are fantastic. So, in conclusion, let's pull this together. What does my shiny future for open source projects look like? So, we start by building a class of empowered, technically fluent team members that are doing project management work. These may be classical project managers, they may be technical members who are coming in and saying, okay, I want to take on some of this work. These may be fresh college grads who are like, man, I really wish I had a career in project management, but nobody will hire me without experience. These people are focused on improving processes, on teaching, and on communicating between teams. They're not focused on deadlines. They're not focused on reports. And by focusing on these well-scoped areas, they can build expertise, provide continuity of knowledge, and slowly organize and shepherd the work. In order to do so, they're going to need to work closely with others. They're going to need to work closely with the folks writing docs. They're going to be working with the CI team. They're going to be onboarding new contributors. They're going to automate away friction and make sure the human side of your organization, as we talked about in one of our keynotes, can scale effectively. And as a result, all of the wonderful open source contributors that we already have, the brilliant tech nerds, can focus on those fascinating and frustrating problems. They can have work that's nicely defined, nicely scoped, and say, okay, this is what it means for this to be done. And they can actually complete work. They can't. You want to try to make sure that if somebody gets stuck, if somebody has to go away, that you can actually complete the task and actually deliver value as a package. An open source project manager is a force multiplier. By improving processes and gathering information into the one right place, we can help domain experts and the community actually make decisions. Thank you so much for listening. So I'll be taking questions in a little bit in Discord. I currently do Bevy full time as an open source maintainer. I'm currently funded by GitHub sponsors. So if you guys are like, that was great, I want to tip you, like, go ahead. And also, if you're a company and you're like, wow, that was great, I wish my processes worked that smoothly, send me an email. I do consulting work. So a little bit about the projects that I work on. So I'm actually maintainer of two open source projects, and they work really differently. And I want to talk to you a little bit about them to show you that these lessons can apply basically no matter what scale you are. So Bevy is the exciting one. This is an ECS-first Rust game engine. It's focused on ergonomics and blazing fast, all that. It's wonderful and it's delightful, and it has 500 contributors and like a half dozen PRs a day. It's crazy and it's exciting. And I got started with it because I took the initiative as a contributor to say, okay, I'm going to start organizing issues. I'm going to start writing docs. I'm going to start collecting and communicating information. And Kurt, the wonderful project lead, saw that and says, okay, you know what, you're going to become an official maintainer. And I've been helping out on the tech side and merging PRs and so on too. So at large scales, this is invaluable. Like, this is essential. You will just choke and you will struggle so much, and your contributors are going to get fed up, and your users will be like, okay, well, what about this change? Like, and your maintainers are going to burn out. But even if you're small, this project management work is really valuable. It helps attract contributors, it helps make them feel welcome, it helps make everything run smoothly, and it allows you to maintain side projects without spending all of your time shepherding and teaching people. So the other project that I'm working on is Taffy, which is a pure Rust UI layout library. So things like Flexbox, CSS Grid, more experimental stuff. And what we did is I collaborated with the Dioxis UI team to fork and resurrect a version of an abandoned VC-backed crate. And it's a wonderful little project, but it's very different from Bevy. It's quiet, it's thoughtful, it's principled. And again, these skills and these practices work really well there because you allow it to take up less of your time, and you make it so much easier for people to just jump in and get started and submit small fixes. So anyways, if you guys have any questions, I'll be on Discord, and then afterwards I'll be over there, and I'd love to chat with you if you guys have questions about project management. Thank you so much.